Welcome back to the Fighters Corner podcast for another episode. In today's epi, we brought back Senor Miguel Iturrate from rainy Costa Rica. On today's bulletins, we covered all things MMA as we recap the fights that took place over this last event by the UFC, which had Kevin Lee on that card. We also dabbled in with some Donald Cerrone versus the Ferguson fight coming up, plus some Ryan Hall and Darren Elkins talk, and added another segment about failed drug tests starring Neil Magny. But don't worry, we think this one's clean. Before we bounce the ball off, I want to break some boxing news as Deontay Wilder just got his next opponent. Although it's not official, it looks like Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz 2 is happening in Los Angeles sometime during September. Two things come to mind immediately with this. One, why do we need to see this again? Come on, really. Is Wilder going to go through everyone in the heavyweight division 2 times before letting us see Fury or Anthony Joshua? And 2, I'm dying to know what Luis Ortiz's purse looks like, because if it's less than the $7 million that he got from the Joshua fight, then one thing is clear. He's ducking Anthony Joshua.
I like to bet on the fights with my friends. Problem is, my friends are all broke, mostly because they bet against me. That's alright, I'm going to take my picks to BetDSI. With 20 years online, BetDSI has more deposit options than any other online sportsbook. They have fast, secure payouts, and when you use promo code Fighters Corner, one word, they're going to give you 100% sports cash bonus. Build a bigger bankroll quicker.
And if you can, show us your support by finding us on Patreon, where you can let us know how much you love us. Also, please don't forget to subscribe, hit like, share, all because you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Radio Player, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, and the guy sitting next to you on the train is probably listening to us too. And if you're a fan of boxing, jiu-jitsu, kumite, and even capoeira, go check out my guys at UCL MMA. These guys are the heavyweight champions of mixed martial arts shows. And if you think you're the next Johnny Lawrence, go to their website at uclmma.com, shoot them an email and tell them John sent you before asking their matchmaker that you want to defend your All Valley Karate Championship versus one of their fighters. That's uclmma.com.
If you're digging that melodious track behind me, that's our friend Malte Castro from Denmark. He makes really good music. Be sure to check him out on Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere else you get your music.
Welcome back to the Fighters Corner. With me is John Goroski.
Hey.
And John, we, of course, have our friend Miguel Iturrate calling in from Costa Rica.
Sunny Costa Rica.
Sunny, yeah. Well, I think it rains every day there. So, Miguel, we had a couple cage fights this weekend. Give us some highlights.
Yeah, exactly. The UFC was up in Rochester, New York.
Beautiful.
And the main
Rochester,
event,
New York.
the main event came. If you have to get out of the country fast, Canada's right there. So maybe Rochester's a good place, But what you got there, you had welterweights Rafael dos Anjos and Kevin Lee meeting up. Very interesting fight. A lot of little nuances to it, and dos Anjos pulled out the 4th round submission.
You know what I noticed? First off, Kevin Lee, I think we can all agree, is incredibly entertaining. And, he's still a young fighter with lots of upside, even though he's on a 2-fight skid. So the thing about Kevin Lee, I think we can all agree, is that he's a young guy, and there's still a lot of upswing with him. He's what is he? He's 26 years old. So there's still a lot of life. There's still a lot of miles left on him. And out of his last 4, he's lost 3. He lost to Al Aquina, Tony Ferguson, and now Rafael dos Anjos. The one thing that I really like to do is when the fights are going back and forth, and you got a guy that needs a win, I like to listen to his corner in between rounds. Mm-hmm. The corner talk coming out of Kevin Lee's corner, he needs to go to a different camp. They were not helping him.
Yeah, I was saying
at
that too.
all. And I'm going to tell you, at some point, fighters outgrow their camps. And sometimes when a coach allows a fighter to do that, they're hesitant. They don't know what to say. They're competing with a guy that knows everything, or a guy that just won't listen. And it appears that's what's going on with him. He needs to find a camp where he's going to listen. At some point, MMA and boxing are about levels and gears. Whatever level he was at, he has peaked, or people have figured him out. He needs to go somewhere else. Would you not agree with that assessment, John?
I think so. I mean, you could start to see that when an athlete starts to get these chained losses
or peak. It appears that they peaked, and you're not peaking at 26 years old.
No. I think you have to sort of, there's a lot of athletes that are out there that will change camps, or they'll use another camp,
just mix it up.
Yeah, just mix up. I mean, that's the best way how you do it.
Different perspective.
Yep. I agree with that 100%. And I think that's probably what it is. He is a victim of being in the same camp for more than he needs to.
And let me play devil's advocate here.
He's loyal.
Oh, that's it. You got a guy that's loyal. And here. Hey, John, do you ever hear the saying, even when you're wrong, or even when you're right, you're wrong? Mm-hmm. Okay, so essentially, we've had conversations where guys are bouncing from camp to camp, and camps aren't loyal to the fighter. Now we got a fighter that's loyal to a camp, and we're sitting here going, hey, man, he's wrong for being loyal to a camp. So you're going to sit here and just go, man, you guys, you're talking in circles, because we are talking in circles. In this instance, when you've lost 3 out of 4, you got to go. Mm-hmm. That's it. Like, you can always come back, but you got to go. It's time for you to leave. And a coach that loves his fighter, and I mean someone that truly cares about the individuals, are going to do one of two things. Either your next camp, we're going to bring in a whole bunch of different people, and you're going to have to respond differently, which should have been this camp, or you got to ride out, bro.
Right.
You got to ride out. Hey, man, I love you. You got to go somewhere else. Maybe we'll meet again. Mm-hmm. That's where it's at. I mean, there's no in between there. Yeah,
and it's an unfortunate thing about it.
But that's the fight game.
It is. I know.
That's the fight game. And the one thing that I noticed was that the average payday on this card was much higher than your average payday of other UFC cards. I know that's been kind of coming under fire. Mm-hmm. These new round of contracts that have been coming through for these fighters, like I think Clay Guida made under 100,000, on for this last fight.
That's not bad for being on the preliminary.
I think he was under $100,000 when you added his show and win bonus up. I think it was like 90 something. Or high 80s.
So 45 and 45,
I think he was 45 and 45. And it's from the hip. I'm not too far off. I made a mental note stating he didn't even make $100,000 for that. When you went to the mid of the main card, everyone there was six figures. Mm-hmm. When you added both up. So I think Clay Guida's fighting on an old contract. I mean, him making 45 is an complete and total insult to who it is he does. Now, they're not fighting him as stiff, but at the end of the day, man, when you talk about recognition that Clay Guida gets, Clay Guida can't walk into a room without at least 10 people knowing who he is. So,
absolutely. The guy's charming, on top of everything. He's been there a long time, and 45 sounds like he was underpaid for a fight against a legend,
Come on, man. Come on, bro. Help me make the argument that these guys are paid right. Yeah. I mean, don't make me look at one salary and go, man, this is bogus. And I'm a fan. I mean, this is just me coming as fans do. We're just talking. What else, Miguel?
Well, as we move on, the UFC is going to be taking off 2 weeks, so they're back on June 1st. And, the June 1st card is labeled UFC Fight Night 153. It comes to us from Stockholm, and it has Anthony Smith and Alexander Gustafsson in the main event, so that's exciting. As the light heavyweight division gets two of their high-level players there.
Yeah, this is like one of these benchmarks for Anthony Smith. Not only does he got to beat Gustafsson, he's got to finish him. And that's not an easy task.
In Stockholm.
It's not an easy task. And Gustafsson's been kind of hanging around the periphery for a long time. But, he's always the bridesmaid. He's never been a bride. But, then when you got John Jones as the groom, who
wants to marry that?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of move there. I don't know. I think Gustafsson's kind of spotty at best in terms of his performance. Sometimes he looks like an absolute killer. Other times he looks like he's just kind of coming up short. There's a lot of downtime in between fights with him as well. Which certainly doesn't help. But Anthony Smith on a bounce back fight speaks volumes of his character, especially after the train of John Jones running over him in the fashion that it did.
Yeah.
So that's a decent fight. Hey, did you see Darren Elkins is fighting Ryan Hall on the Sacramento card?
I saw Elkins getting warmed up for that fight. and announcing it on his social media. So yeah, I'm very excited to see him back.
Yeah, well, what's crazy is both those guys have fought for me here locally. Ryan Hall was like desperate for a fight. Like he needed one more bout in order to get accepted on the Ultimate Fighter. Like, I mean, it was weird having Ryan Hall call me up going, please, I'll do anything. Like the guy essentially would have paid to have been on my card, and then he wins the Ultimate Fighter, a couple months later. But that's actually a really interesting matchup. Darren Elkins is hard as nails. The minute that thing goes to the ground, though, I think he's in trouble. That Ryan Hall ground game, he's a one-trick pony, but that trick is friggin' phenomenal.
We'll see. I mean, Elkins has that hard-working way of getting through things and stuff, and you could see him winding up bloody and stuff like that, or all messed up, but to get outclassed on the ground, I think hopefully he'll be working from the top, and then he'll take his chances. But yeah, Hall's tricky
for sure. Any odds or anything like that, Miguel?
Well, I got a couple of big matches that were announced that I think that are very interesting as well. And we've got some odds for those, right?
Sure.
And one of them is that the Stipe Miocic Daniel Cormier bout now has odds, and that's scheduled for UFC 241 rather. I think we had mentioned that in our last podcast, and the odds weren't up right now. Mm-hmm. Cormier opened at minus 155, Miocic returning at plus 135, so kind of a tight fight there, and that's competition. That's what I like to see from the UFC. The second set of odds I have is an equally interesting title bout, and what we have there is, I'm sorry, no, I'm not going to talk about the title bout, which was Max Holloway and Frankie Edgar, but I'm going to talk about the other super interesting fight that got announced, and that's Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cerrone, and that one has Ferguson at minus 185 with Cerrone paying back at plus 170.
So Cerrone's the underdog. I can see that. I could say, well, here, let's start with the first one. Stipes had a long layoff. Mm-hmm. He's got a long layoff.
Yep.
And, DC, I mean, he's getting up there in age.
And this is his curtain call, too, because I think he's going to officially retire.
He might do John Jones again, but
he had back surgery too.
He had back surgery, yeah. So essentially, like that's here, Father Time with the sands in the hourglass, which is what the reference you always like to make, John, or the young up and coming guy that's going to have some ring rust. I think
it's hard to count against
Stipe or DC.
DC, I mean,
dude, immigrant mentality.
Yeah.
Versus seasoned veteran. Like, does that excite you?
It does. And we've already seen this bout once where Cormier won, right?
I think it was almost like a head game Cormier was playing. They were playing like patty cake, and Cormier stuck him.
He won. And I'm looking forward to the bout again, the rematch. I'm a fan of DC. I'm a fan of Stipe. Uh-huh. And I think the results are going to be the same. I don't think it'll be a knockout like this one was. I think Stipe will come in a little bit more with a level head.
Well, he's just he played DC's game.
He did, and he lost. That's what it comes down to.
And to be honest with you, if I'm a betting man, because I like action
at betdsi.com
and that's promo code Fighters Corner, what I'm doing, honestly, I'm doing Stipe.
It's a smart bet, I think.
It's a real smart, dude. You got a second chance on a guy that clearly screwed up on a game plan and on the first thing, on his first bout. He's not going to do that a second time.
I'll add a layer to that too. Stipe's last match was against DC, correct? And that was almost 2 years ago.
Yes.
So he's been sitting on that loss for 2 years, probably waking up every morning thinking of DC.
Looking in the mirror.
Yeah, and just
here we go. How about this? Grandma has some heart issues. Okay, you guys call 911. Stipe shows up to do chest compressions, order.
And mouth to mouth to my grandma.
Dude, he'd murder your grandma. It'd be over. He's thinking DC ground and pound. You know what I'm saying? I'm checking his hands for gloves. I'm like, no, not him. Give me somebody else.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, Grandma will wait another minute and a half. Get another truck over here.
Grandma can wait.
Yeah, maybe Stipe can move the piano.
Yes, yeah. Don't you guys have one of those like electronic machines that you plug in and like you can't touch the person, otherwise everyone dies? Can we just plug them? You know what I mean? It's just not happening. No.
Yeah, no.
So Cerrone Ferguson. What are the odds on that one more time ago?
You got Cerrone underdog at plus 170 or plus 160 rather, and Ferguson at minus 185.
I have a hard time ever betting against Donald Cerrone.
But Tony Ferguson, here's the thing, like as we've discussed, Cerrone has got a new camp, and the people he's with have changed his style. Like, his style is not the same. Mm-hmm. But the pressure that a Ferguson brings with a questionable chin. I mean, Ferguson's been dropped a couple times. Mm-hmm. With a questionable chin. Huh?
So Cerrone.
So Cerrone, yeah.
Yeah, so Cerrone. That's true. So is Cerrone. That's true.
I just pointed out as the next. That's what's going to. Another X factor is, on top of all the technique, on top of all that, someone could just go down from a fluke blow in that fight. Because both guys, fight balls out, and they leave themselves open a little bit. And that's, I think, what you're pointing out, that Cerrone has improved on, and he's fighting more cerebrally now.
Okay, so fluke blow, who lands it, John?
Ferguson.
No. Did you watch Cerrone's last fight?
Yeah.
Fluke blow, I gotta go Cowboy. Fluke blow, Miguel, who do you call?
I don't know, because they both have turned. Ferguson throws such a high volume. I mean, remember,
Pettis had
I think the fight you're referring to where he was dropped was the Pettis fight, where
Pettis
he was dropped, and Pettis was doing like somersaults in front of him and stuff like that. And
Capoeira.
He didn't miss a beat. He's ready for anything coming at you. He got dropped and he got right back up and right into the mix with a freaking a windmill basically in front of him. You know what I mean? And
I think the bell also helps him out.
I think what Cerrone's got is Cerrone's going to have to come in and slow him down a little bit, like he did Iaquinta.
How are you going to slow that guy down? Yeah. I mean, how are you going to slow Tony Ferguson down? Like, the pressure he puts on you is like none I have ever seen, like, in combat sports. Like, it's just like, if you want to transition to boxing, you can say Lomachenko. Lomachenko's got a lot of pressure too, but Lomachenko he taps, and then in the later rounds he puts the heat on. Ferguson's throwing heat from the beginning to the end.
He headhunts.
Yeah, I mean, but Jonah, who do you pick? Who lands the fluke blow?
Hey, what's going on? I gotta say Cerrone, just because he's coming with new angles, new techniques. Ferguson is sticking a little bit. I haven't seen Ferguson do a total revamp the way we've seen out of Cerrone lately, so I don't think he's going to be as likely to bring the surprise.
And I got to tell you another thing is, like, the way Cerrone fought Iaquinta, like, if he can duplicate that, then that's not a fluke. Like, no, man, his style changed, like 100% changed. And we're looking at kind of like the second coming of a fighter that's already a monster. So that fight really interests me a lot.
I don't want to disagree with you, and I'm not, but I don't know if change is the right way. It's not like, he was a counterpuncher and now he's a jiu-jitsu submission expert. That, I think what it is you saw his game really blossom, because it's very complete now. And the main part of the change, maybe more in his mindset and his ability to handle and pace a fight, like Iaquinta. And just like, he took the Iaquinta fight seriously. And from the very beginning, it showed. And, he dictated the pace of that fight and made Iaquinta fight exactly the way he wanted. And if he's able to do that to someone like Ferguson, then that's elite stuff. Because as you said, Ferguson may have a style that's just not susceptible to that, because he's just always, you're never not on your back foot.
Well, this is what I like in between the corner between Iaquinta and Cerrone. You heard Cerrone's corner. Okay, well, he did exactly what we thought he was going to do. Remember when we practiced this and you did that? You did a great job. Like, it was all positive reinforcement, like, hey, we knew it was coming. And, as opposed to Iaquinta's corner where, Matt Serra and Ray Luongo, they weren't as elaborate in regards to, what they were experiencing. I think Pettis he gave a blueprint on what to do. I mean, and granted, this guy's doing cartwheels and somersaults and, hitting you from the sky. But I think the movements that you were able to get out of that fight, if you're Cerrone in his corner, are much more beneficial than watching Cerrone's last fight. If you're Tony Ferguson, because I mean it's. I wasn't interested in that card until they mentioned that fight, and now I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going. Like, I can't miss that. Like, 20 years from now, I got to be able to say to someone, oh, no, I went to that one. No, I saw that live.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I recently had an experience where I was talking with a guy, and we were talking about we were talking about somebody from the past would like to see matched against John Jones, and I thought maybe a sophisticated striker like Bas Rutten. And he was like, and we talked about the Bas Rutten Kevin Randleman fight, and he asked me, did I think that Bas won the fight? And I got to say, yeah, I sat cage side for that, and I'm pretty confident that Bas won that fight. So, yeah, you want to be there for historical fights. There's nothing like seeing a fight live.
Yeah, and just to shoehorn that in. Oh, no. I was there, sir. I was there. No, I agree. And if I may, John, I know you're going to be mad at me when I mention this. Jonah, hit mute on Jones' microphone for just 2 seconds. Neil Magny tested positive for steroids. He just got his letter in the mail. Okay? His letter to his fans. Okay, first off, I know Neil on a personal level. The letter that he wrote to his fans in regards to, I will not let you down. Like, I believe in USADA. I believe in the process. Hey, sometimes things happen. Not me. I can't wait till we can sign this. One of two things are going to happen. Either the UFC declares a victory over steroids and says, okay, USADA, that $10 million that we set aside a year for you for steroid testing, yeah, no, that shit's over. Gravy train's gone. If this is a false positive, like another false positive, which they've had up until this point, it's just they're circling the drain right now.
You crumple up USADA into a ball, and you just hurl it into the sun.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say you just get rid of USADA. I mean, I think
it's a joke.
It's how many strikes are you going to give him? I mean,
we're going to give one guy 50 strikes, but then we're going to give you dude, you took an ibuprofen, and there's like this little caffeine molecule that's in there that triggered our test.
A picogram. Yeah, know your terms, Mike.
Yeah, and like because of that, you're going to have to take 6 months off. I apologize. No, John, go ahead, snort that line of test.
Yeah, no, I mean, the bottom line is they also recently it was a woman fighter. I'm looking for the name, but I'm not finding it. But it can be documented here. I believe that they issued a 24-month suspension. That after 23 months, they came back and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're going to reverse that. That's no good."
Yeah.
Yeah, after your career is pretty much over because you took 2 years off.
Oh, and by the way,
we're going to tip you an extra. You get an extra month for it. Thanks.
Yeah. We'll take a month off. And by the way, we're trying to fill a spot in your weight class. I don't know if you're interested. It's in 2 weeks. Are you in? Yeah. Are you in? Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do.
We could probably get you up a weight.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with USADA, but there's going to be a PR campaign, and Neil Magny's probably going to be one of those benchmarks in regards to like dumping all over it. And Neil Magny is not a steroid user. He's not a steroid abuser. Now, am I saying is it possible that he tested positive for some hair trigger type substance? Yes, but I am telling you this right now. In terms of going to the local corner store, talking to the jacked guy that works out in bodybuilding competitions and saying to him, "Hey, dude, you think you guys can score me some sort of Cadillac of roids so I can put them in me and get an extra edge?" That's not Neil Magny. That's not who he is. It's not who he is.
Yeah, no, I don't think I think even his opponent said that he doesn't think that
Neil Magny might be doing many things in life. He's definitely ADHD. Mm-hmm. The guy loves his sugar. The guy.
Maybe that's what he snorted. Pixie sticks?
I know. I think it was one too many Red Bulls, dude. This guy's got like a case of Red Bull that he carries around with him. And I'm telling you, steroids is not it. And it's a flawed system. Let the states handle it. USADA, you suck.
Yeah, at the end of the day, remember, so USADA and USADA, they use pretty much the same test. When they had the Olympics in China and the meat was triggering the test, instead of saying, oh, this test is malfunctioning, this test doesn't work, welcome to the vegan lifestyle. Like the athletes have to comply with the test even when the tests are faulty and flawed. You can't have people competing at the highest level in combat sports where their health is really on the line and have them jumping through hoops for these stupid tests.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. It's just absolutely dumb.
No, yeah, and if they mess it up, then it's on them. And then hopefully we'll get some Pride fighters back in. You know what I mean? Like I liked seeing a Wanderlei Silva with veins popping out of his neck.
And I'm not trying to get too far off course. Sage Northcutt fought in ONE FC. 9-hour surgery, 8 fractures in his face.
How about that, huh?
30 seconds. Flew halfway across the world for a 30-second fight.
Just to get knocked out and get surgery.
Have you guys watched the ONE FC product yet? Have you guys taken your time to see it?
I've dabbled.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I mean, like, I am... And they're going across multiple mediums. Like, they're doing, like, high-end kickboxing, sometimes high-end Muay Thai in the cage... and they're doing it with MMA gloves on. Yeah. And, and they're doing Pride rules too. Like, I like ONE FC.
Yeah. I think their talent pool needs to be a little deeper.
The difference with that is that, you got Dana White, who is what he is, a force. But at the end of the day, Dana's like, I used to box. What the fuck did Dana ever do in fighting? I mean,
dude, he taught cardio kickboxing.
He built the UFC. That's his fighting resume. But prior to that, what did he have? Well, the ONE FC has Matt Hume. And interestingly, you talked recently about them doing a Myanmar event on through one on the Zone, I believe we were talking about it. Uh-huh. And I talked to Matt about their success in Myanmar, which is a very closed country. And it's a very interesting story. The bottom line is Matt personally trained a fighter from that country who was a refugee in the United States. And when they took this kid back to the country, and he had his marketability and stuff like that, but he caught fire, and he's now literally the most popular athlete ever existed in the country. And, when you have a closed country like that, 20, 30 million people and stuff like that, sure, you're monetizing. You're putting things on TV. You're getting things like that. So what they bring is they bring a business model that operates in Asia. At the end of the day, everybody's, Asian market, chop it up. The Chinese market, in and of itself, is its own market, and it's massive. The Japanese market, completely different, also quite large. You've got Singapore, you've got as they are exploring Thailand, and even Myanmar, which is a smaller, a smaller economy. But at the end of the day, if they have every TV trained on them, that's something that they're cashing in on. So, I think the combination of Matt Hume, who is a fight person,
he's a brilliant
able to
mind.
Make decisions like same-day weigh-ins and things. They do same-day weigh-ins.
And he also
you fight at your weigh-in weight.
Yeah, so they also do like a fluid check as well. Like Rich Franklin is over there as well helping out, and Rich is they're both doing a phenomenal job. And
that type of decision gets made by Matt Hume, a fight person. Rich Franklin, a fight person who has insight. Same thing with the Pride rules and going with those rules. Those rules have one very essential point that is all fighting, and that is the guy intelligently defending himself? Because if I'm on my back with my legs up, it is a defensive position. And if I'm lucid and defending myself, then yes, you can be kicked in the head. Defend yourself. That's what fighting's about. If the guy is prone, then you can't do it. Now, that puts a lot of pressure on your judges and your fighters and things. It doesn't keep things simple, but it does make for definitely exciting finishing positions. Yeah. And in my opinion, because of the defensive posture that they're looking for, not any more dangerous. So, those are decisions made by fight guys. I'm sorry to go long, but those are decisions made by a guy like Hume, who really is a fight person, and not Dana, who's some kind of mix of business person as well.
Well, if there's an argument for anybody being in the UFC Hall of Fame, you'd be foolish not to write Matt Hume's name down there. I mean, the guy was a stud. So anyway, Miguel, You are the man, sir. We appreciate you, coming on here doing these news updates with us, and we're going to see you guys next week. Every Sunday, expect an update. Thank you, sir.